All right, so for today's class, we are so I'll all assume that we all have Python installed in on our devices, right? So we will dive in and see how we can start giving this instruction, right? How we can start writing basic instruction in Python programming, all right? In Python programming. And so I think someone said that he could not install his own Python. It's on the place. So please can you unmute your mic and let us know what challenges that you are facing so we could help you out so you don't get left out. Mr. Richard, I want to assume that you are Mr. What's the issue? What's the difficulty with your Python installation?
Okay, so when I downloaded the app and then followed every other step, but when it got to the point I needed to put in the command code.
Okay, so I think we've lost Mr. Richard, or I don't know if it's from my end, but I'm no longer hearing him. Is there anyone hearing me, or is anyone hearing me properly? Because I'm no longer hearing from Mr. Richard.
Yeah, I can hear you properly. I think it's from him.
All right, so I think we've lost Mr. Richard, so we will proceed whenever it comes. Whenever all right. Okay, so we're gonna proceed from where we left off. Okay, so and like I said, I'll assume that we all have this installation on our devices. Okay, so for those of us that were not there, so you simply follow our previous video, which I believe it's available for us to go back and revisit it and follow the step accordingly. So for me, I have mine installed, and you can verify that by going to your command prompt and then simply type the command Python -- version. If you have this installed, then it should tell you that that's the current interpreter version of your own Python. So your version may not be exactly this, but then it doesn't really matter. As far as you have from version 3.1 and above, we are good to go, right? We are good to go. Okay, so next step is that we need a means or a place where we can start typing out this instruction, because we can't just start typing out this instruction at any point, right? So we need something like an editor, right? Something that we can type, all right? Type our instruction, and then it does what it helps us to interpret it and execute the instruction. So for that, we will need to install VS Code. So it's Visual Studio Code. It's a very popular editor that we'll be using. Right. So basically, what you do, just go to your browser and then just search for download VS Code, right? VS Code, and it should be the first route. So the first URL here. If you just click this, and then it should install, right? So it's straightforward. So just click on whatever OS you are using. So for Windows, guys, just click on Windows. For Linux, guys, picking up this, and then for Mac OS, then you can go with this, right? So that will install for you, and basically that's just that, right? And that is just that. So I already have mine installed. So if you look at my taskbar here, I have VS Code. It's not pinned, but if I search for VS Code, Visual Studio Code, so I have mine here already installed. Right? So you go ahead and you install yours. All right, so that is what we'll be using to type our instructions, and this has the ability to connect with our interpreter. So when we write the instruction, it references the interpreter and it interprets for us, right, and executes the instruction accordingly. All right, so one more thing is I also want to create a folder within my desktop where we have all our source code for this particular track. So every code that we intend to be writing moving forward would stay within that folder, okay, for the purpose of organizing our source code, right? So I will also advise that you have yours created as well, so you don't have to scatter your source code all over your entire device. So for me, I'll go to desktop, and I'll go to desktop, and I will just create a folder. So I think Mr. Samuel, your hand is there a question?
Yes, I want to ask a question.
Okay.
Sorry, sir. It's kind of a personal question. I wanted to install VS Code. My laptop is Core i3. Processor is Core i3, so it keeps crashing down. I don't know if there's something lower I can just manage for now until I get a new one. Like the version of VS Code that can be accommodated by my laptop until I get a new one. I don't know.
Personally, I think VS Code should just run just on quietly. But if you're having problem with VS Code, then you can go for Sublime Text, right? So just quickly search for download Sublime Text. So Sublime Text works well as well. So I think Sublime Text is quite lighter than VS Code, I think. Right. So if
what did you call it again, sir?
Sublime Text, sorry, Sublime, you can say that, and then text.
Okay, sir. I'll try that out. Thank you.
All right. So okay. All right. So let's go ahead and let's continue. Right. So for like I was saying, for me, I would create a folder within my desktop. Yours could be anywhere, probably your download, your documents, anywhere at all. Right? For me, I will put this on my desktop, and I will call this KodeCamp KC 5.0 code, right? So all my source code will live within this folder. So quickly, I will open up this folder in my VS Code, and then I would, for each classes, I'll simply be creating new file within this folder, right? So you can, if you have VS Code already installed, so you click on it. So this is a process that we'll be repeating every day. Okay, this is a process that we'll be repeating every day. So we'll come here every day, then we open this folder in VS Code, and then we create a new file. So we repeat that almost every classes, right? Almost every classes. Right, so while that is coming up, okay, so while that is loading up, now we should know that that every Python instruction should be written in a file that have the extension of .py, right? So .py is an appropriate extension for every Python instructions. So if it's similar to your .txt, which is your text file, but Python, the Python interpreter cannot interpret that instruction in any other file extension apart from .py. So moving forward, when we start creating new files and then you start seeing us doing .py, it's because we intend for the interpreter to be able to interpret those instructions, right? So I will zoom this out. So we have, this is my folder here. For now, there is no file in that folder. So I would simply create a new file. I'll simply create a new file, and this file, I will call this file, our first code .py. Right, so this is our new file, and this is where we will start writing our instructions. Okay, but then first, real quick, okay, so if you have VS Code, right, installed, right, what I would advise for you to do is you, after opening this up, okay, and then after creating this folder rather, and then you've created your new file there, what I want you to do is to go to extension section. So where I have my cursor there, so that is extension section, and then I want you to download few extensions that will help you process your Python code quickly. All right, so you don't have to go through the stress of executing your code, or you don't have to go through the stress of formatting your code appropriately. All right. So what I want you to do is to search for Pylance, right? So there's this extension here called Pylance. So you search for it and you install it, and then you search for Python, and then you install it as well, and then you search for Python debugger and also install it. So those three extensions, I would urge you that you install those three extensions. Those three extensions will help you put this there's this icon here that I have here. Now that icon there is because of one of that extension. So it's because I have that extension, I can simply click on that icon there and it will execute my Python file, right? But then if you don't have that extension installed, you will not see this button there. So you have to go through the stress of going to your command prompt to execute this Python code. All right, so to save yourself from that stress, I would urge you that after installation of your VS Code, right, and then creating your folder and opening that folder in VS Code, that you should do what? Install these three extensions: Pylance, Python, and Python debugger. Very crucial extension, right? Very crucial extension. And one more thing that you should also note during your VS Code installation is that if you see a section that says add VS Code to path, please tick it, right? So if you see a section that says add VS Code to path, please go ahead and check that box as well. So it's similar to your Python installation, right? So just check that box. Now, if you check that box, it saves you so much stress, right? Especially if you try to do what I just did here by right-clicking on a folder. So cannot be accessed the VS Code and then going to VS Code to open folder from your VS Code. It's a lengthy process, all right? So please, if you see that section that says add VS Code to path, please check it, all right? Are we together? Is there any question so far? Any question so far? All right, so the silence means no.
Can you please confirm the three? Pylance and debugger, and what's the third one, please?
Okay, so we have Python, we have Pylance, and then we have Python itself as extension, and then we also have Python debugger, right? Okay. So those three extensions, it's crucial, right? It's necessary. So someone's hand is up. Any question?
Yes, sir. My question is, if you have already installed the VS Code and you do not click, you don't add it to, is there any way to go around, like through the settings or something, to be able to not do that?
All right. So if you already installed VS Code and you haven't added it to path, well, you could reinstall it again and then add it to path. That's one way, or you could just use it like that, right? But then what you have to do is that for each time you launch your VS Code, you have to manually come here to your file section and open a folder, right? So and come here and then go to open a folder and then navigate to where you have your folder and then open it, right? That is just the only difference, right? So you could do it in that method, or you could just reinstall it and then add it to path. So whichever way works. All right. So Miracle, your hand is up. Is there a question?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, please. You said we should install those Python debugger and the rest. How do we install it to the VS Code?
Okay, so if you navigate to the extension section, which I am here, right? You simply just search for Pylance. Assuming you want to install Pylance, right? If you search for Pylance, it should come up. So and then you click on it, you have these options of installing. So since I already have mine installed, so mine is showing uninstalled or disabled. So yours should show installed, right? Yours should show installed. And then you click on it. Yeah. All right. Any other question before we proceed? Okay. So so the silence means no other question. Okay. So for our first code, okay. So I want us to simply put this instruction on our VS Code. So you've opened your VS Code, you've created your folder, and you've created your file within that folder. Simply put this instruction and then execute this, and tell me what you see on your end. So if you sorry, so I'll put this hello world rather. Okay. If you have that instruction written out, you can execute this by clicking that play button there, or you could navigate to this folder in your in your command prompt. So what do I mean? You could, assuming you have your file here in this folder here, right here, right? So what I want you to do is you could navigate to this folder to where you have that folder there. So what you could do is you could go to your command prompt, right? And then you could just do change directory. CD means change directory in Windows, and also it works. I think it also means change directory in whichever operating system you are using. So if I should say CD to desktop, being that I have my folder in my desktop, right? And then I should now go ahead and do CD into the folder itself. So in this case, I think the folder name was KC 5.0 code. So the way that folder name is written is that folder name has spaces. So for that, I have to put that name in a quote, right? KC 5.0 quotes, right? And then, so my file is within this folder now, right? So I could now say Python. So Python here is the interpreter, and then I can pass, and then I can pass in the file name being face code, right? So this is the instruction that we intend to execute. And then if I click on enter, then that should execute our code. So that's the second way that we could do that. So now you see the need where we have to install that pipeline. So where we could just simply click here and it will execute, rather than going through the stress that I've just done here. Right. So is there anyone that have done that? Is there anyone that have successfully executed that instruction? Perfect. Perfect. So I think there's one person that have executed that. Any other person? Any other person? Or is there someone that has error? Because I think someone's hand is up. Miracle and Christian. You guys hand down here, right? All right, so I have two people that have executed that. Exactly. So people have actually executed that and that have run. So I was hoping that probably someone has an error. So for those of us that have successfully executed that instruction, congratulations on your first Python code. Officially, you are now a Python programmer. Officially, right? So that's really nice. That's really nice. So it's good that no one has error, right? So I was really hoping that someone would have error. So it means that you guys are paying attention attentively, right? So you guys are paying attention real close. All right, so let's dive in. Let's dive in deeper, right, to our code, right? So what we've just done there is a very simple instruction of displaying a message, right? So the instruction here says that we should print, and then within this print we have a text saying hello world, right? And then this text comes in quotes, right? And what happened is that if we execute this now, it basically just sends back what we just typed in there, right? To our console or to our interface, I would say. Okay, so and then this is the output of that instruction. So what just happened there is that we've successfully passed the instruction of telling Python interpreter, please go ahead and do what and display this message to the screen. And what happened? It basically does what, interpreted that instruction and does what, and displayed that message to screen. So it basically means that that you can as well display whatever you intend to do what to display out here. So if I should duplicate this code and then I would probably just change this and then I'll put in my name here and save and then I'll put this Basi. duplicate again, and then I would say KodeCamp 5.0. Duplicate, and I'll say backend with Python. So if I should not execute this instruction again, of course, as expected, everything should do what should be displayed to screen. So if I should run this, so we have everything as expected. All right, so having that in mind, and then we could simply say that we could dive deeper into the print function. So I would delete this out, and then we will put them back again when we need them. All right. So one more thing is that you can delete out your source code, right, or your instructions, the ones you do not intend to execute again, or you can comment it out. Now, comment in Python is given or is initiated with the hash symbol or the pound symbol, this symbol there. So now if you comment on your instruction, it means that the code is still there, right? But then your interpreter would not interpret it. So comment is very important in programming, as it helps you to put in some notes for your own development sake, and not for the interpreter. So if you should execute this code again, then nothing should actually execute, because at this point we've done what? We've commented out that code. So this is comments in Python. So I'll put this out, and this is what comments. That is how you comment on Python. They are basically lines of instruction that is being ignored by the interpreter. They are basically lines of instruction that has been ignored by interpreter. So Mr. Williamson, your hand is up. You have a question? Mr. Williamson, your hand is up. You have a question?
Yes, I do, sir. Can you hear me?
Right. Yes, I can hear you now.
How did you highlight everything and change it all to comments?
Okay. All right. So and the good thing about VS Code is that VS Code has some tricks and easy ways of things. So what you could do is you can highlight all of them. So I think it works in all code editor. So you highlight all of them, and then you press down Control, and then you press down /. So let me put that combination here. So it's you Control plus this slash there, this slash. So that is that's how you do it, right? So if I should, and same thing happens if you highlight again and do the same thing, it uncomment, right? And then you do it again, it comment, and uncomment, comment, and comment. So that's how you can highlight multiple lines, and then you comment them out all at once. Is that understood?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. So let's look at the print function properly, right? So let's look at that, what we just did properly, in a more deeper explanation. All right. So this is a built-in function, right? This print function is built-in, is Python built-in function that displays information. So that's basically what that function there does, right? So it's built into Python. So it's similar to our own language, where we have each word and its own meaning. Same thing happens here, right? There are built-in functions that does specific action, right? And we are gonna see a lot of them moving forward. But for this beginning part, all right. So this is just one of them. This is just one of the built-in functions in Python, being the print function that basically displays what information. So whatever you put within that bracket gets shown on the screen. So if you put in text, you can actually put in text, can put in numbers, you can put in variables, which we'll talk about, and so many things, right? So many things can be passed within that function and within that print function, and it gets executed, right? And it gets executed, and this function takes an entire line, right? An entire line. So it means that that if I should put in a print like this, right? If I have a print function like this, right? Probably let's use what we use up there. Let's also use what we. So if I comment out one of these instruction, right? And then I comment out this other instruction, it means that each of these print statements will stay on their own line. That's basically what it means. Right? That's how that function behaves by default. Each of them will stay on its own line. So save your battery can never be on the same line with hello world. So if I should execute this, so you see they both take in a different line. Right? That's how that function behaves by default. And of course, we can also have an empty print function. So you can have an empty print that prints nothing, right? So if you have something like this, then basically what happens is that it prints a new line, right? So it creates a new line there. So if I should uncomment this other one out, then you see that after save your battery, you should have an empty line before KodeCamp 5.0. I will get that. So if I should execute now, we have save your battery, and then we have an empty line. Now that empty line is because of the empty print that we have there. So nothing was printed except an empty line, followed by the other instruction of KodeCamp 5.0. So that is basically how that function behaves, or that's basically how that. Please confirm that you guys can see my screen, but someone is saying that you can't see my screen.
Yes, I can see it.
All right, so please, I think it's from that person's end. Mr. Christian, I think it's from your end, right? It's from your end. All right, so that is basically how that function behave, and this function can take in numbers, right? This function can take in numbers, so I can also come here, and I can also say let's go ahead, let's print something like 100. So I can print 100. Now you see the difference between 100 and what we've been printing previously, right? So what we've been printing previously is what is within quotes, is within quotation. Consider we are putting all these things in quotes, but then you see that that 100 is printed without quotes. Now that's because of the kind of value. So that takes us to data types, which we'll talk about, right? We'll talk about data types shortly. But for now, know that you cannot put numbers in quotes, right? You cannot put numbers in quotes. So you can have 100. You can also have the fraction, decimal, rather. So I can have 27.8, and then 27.8 also does not have to come in quotes, right? Please. So you only put things outside of numbers, right? And I'll tell you. Don't worry. I will also tell you things that you can quote and things that you cannot quote. Okay, so I can also tell you things that you can quote and things that you cannot quote. So numbers are one of them, right? So numbers are one of them, and don't worry, once we get to data types, we will discuss more of it. All right. So if we now execute this, of course, it should also do what? It should also display 127.8 to screen. So that's basically the function or the usage of that built-in print function. Question before we proceed. Question before we proceed. Right. So no question. Right. No question. Okay. So like I said, that there are certain things that we can quote and certain things that we cannot do quote. And I said that numbers are one of them. Are those things that we cannot quote, and text are the things that we can quote, which leads us to data types. So there are what we call data types in programming as a whole. Data types in programming. Data types, right? And sorry that we are not going back to reference the slide. Don't worry, I will when it is appropriate, the slide may be released to you guys, right? But majority of the time, once we come to VS Code, we do everything in VS Code. The notes I will comment them here, and then whatever needs to whatever is important, I'll put it here on VS Code. Okay, but then we have this, whatever I'm saying, right, is available here on slide, right? So it's all of them are here on this slide, right? So you don't have to miss out on anything. But trust me, the content of VS Code is should I say, is more valuable compared to a slide, because no, when you're just playing, right, and then certain information can come into my head, and I can just put it here on VS Code, and it may not be available on the slide. So that's one thing that I would always say, that attending classes, right, is more preferable than just getting the slide, right? Because most times we have lesser information on the slide. So I think Mr. Gabriel, your hand is up. Is there a question? Mr. Gabriel. Mr. Gabriel.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, good morning. Please, I want to ask something.
Right.
What is the difference between writing with hashtag and writing normal without the quoting? Like this place you wrote print bracket is Python built on. This one now, what's the difference between writing it without hash and writing it with hash?
Okay, like you mean the difference between
No,
this?
I mean this green, this
right,
green
this
one
green
now.
part. Okay, so we said
Yes,
that
and writing it without the hash, like you are not printing anything, just write it without hash.
Okay, so we said that that this hash is comment, right? So those are instructions that is being ignored by your interpreter. Now, if you put a hash here, your interpreter will intentionally ignore that instruction, thinking that what that is a comment, probably it's a note for you as a developer, right? So hash are comments, right? They signify comments, instruction that is not being executed by your interpreter.
Now, wait, now, if you remove, like, go to this comment, that place you wrote comment. If you remove that comment, if you remove that hash, what will happen?
Okay, so if I
Like
remove
this
this,
now.
right? So if I remove that hash there, that will throw an error, because we don't have any instruction as comments in Python, right? So,
Okay.
so yeah. So,
Okay, thank you, sir.
And already you could see that that VS Code is underlining that as warning, right? So if I should execute this, then that will throw an error, right? So you're saying that comments is not defined, right? So if this was supposed to be like a note for you, you simply just comment on it, right? And it will go away. All right, so data types. So data types are basically value categorization. Value categorization, and I'll tell you what I mean by value categorization, right? So now we know that in programming there are different kinds of values, right? There are values that Python actually does what? Categorize into types. So every value in Python belongs to a particular category. All right. So like I said, we have a value like 100. 100 here is an integer, a whole number, right? Now, any value that fall into this category is seen as int in Python. So be it 100, be it 0, be it -10, be it 10, okay, be it 9, be it 1 million, right? As far as that value, what is an whole number, the Python categorize them as int. All right, so int is a short form for it's known as integers, right? We say integers, right? It's known as integers. So now this kind of values are not in quote, right? They are plain like that, right? But then they must be whole numbers. Then any values that has decimal points, right, are then considered as float. So something like 10.5, we could have 15.0, because we could even have 0.0, right? We could have 12.1, we could have 30.789, right? So as far as this thing has decimal points, it's seen as int, as float, right? As float, known as a decimal numbers, right? So, and then we have another type, and this type are basically anything in quotes, right? So anything in quotes. So like something like hello, something like hi, something like KodeCamp, right? Something like this again, right? Something like this as well, right? So all these things is seen as string, right? It's seen as string, str, string. So string are basically anything in quotes, and they are considered as text, right? They are considered as text, right? So that's the reason why we have that that some of these things that we printed here are what are in text, and some sorry are in quotes, and some are not in quotes. It's because of what of the type of value, right? So this so now here is what here is quotes, right? So now if you take out this quote, then this happen this throws an error because none of this value should be without quote because they are neither int, neither are they float. So as such, they should be what they should be in quotes, right? Making them strings in Python. So I have to come back here and I have to put this back in quotes as they were. If not, this will not actually go through. All right, so we have another data type, and this one there are actually two. We have the true and we have the false. And this one is considered as Boolean. You can see that this one is similar to text, but then they are not also in quotes, right? So this one is built into Python. So once Python see this particular one, they know that they are Boolean values, right? They are considered as bool, right? Considered as bool, short for Boolean. And Boolean is only have two values, being true or false. But then you should also notice what the casing, right? That the T here is capital T and the F here is capital F. So in Python we don't have a true value that is small t. If you do this, then this is considered as what as a text. So as such, it should be in quotes, right? But then if you have capital T like this, it's what is known as a valid value, right? A valid Boolean value, right? Same thing with false, right? So for this particular class or category of data type, those are the only two values that are valid in that category, right? So I think someone had Mr. Joseph.
Okay, I thought Python is dynamic, so doesn't it work with the smaller t for the Boolean? That's my question.
Okay. That's a very beautiful question. So Python is dynamic, and I'll tell you what that means. But then there's a difference between being dynamic and being case sensitive. So Python is case sensitive, right? It's case sensitive, but then it's also dynamic. And I'll tell you what dynamic means shortly, right? I'll explain the concept of Python being dynamic shortly, okay? But then what you should know is that Python is case sensitive, right? So this true being a valid value that belongs to this category of data type, right, is different from this true, please. It's different from this true. Right? So this true here is considered as text or is seen as text, right? So as such, it should be in this, right? So same thing happens here that if I should also have something like this, comma a string of capital T, this is known as a text as well because what is in quotes. Anything in quotes is seen as string. So all right, so those are the basic data types in Python. We have about 14 of them, but I will stop here, right? Moving forward as we proceed, we'll explore other types. But for this basic, right, for where we are now at this basic or at this basic level, right, so we will work with just these four categories of data type. The integers being what whole number. So any value within your Python source code that is whole number is considered what as integers. But the moment you put them in quotes, they turn to a string. But then any value as well that has decimal, be it 0.0, is considered as what as float. But also if you put them in quotes, it's considered as what as string. And string, all right, we already know string is anything in quotes, right? And then we have what the Boolean value being what true or false. And those are the only two valid values that live in that particular category of what? Of data. Do we understand? Do we understand? Question. All right. So moving forward, let's look at the concept of variables. Then from there, we'll now look at what we mean by Python being what? Dynamic in nature. So the concept of variables in Python or in programming as a whole, variables. All right. So this concept lives across all programming languages, right? So as far as programming is concerned, you always find a need or what of variables. So what exactly are these variables? Variables are basically containers, right? You could put it like that at lowest form. Okay, they are basically containers that hold, or you could say store, values, right? That can be used within our code. So that's basically what variables are, right? They are basically containers that hold values, right? So let's say that that we intend to hold certain information. Let's say we have to hold someone's name, hold someone's age, hold someone's gender, and then at some point within our code, we intend to use those values, right? So we don't have to to remember how those values were saved, but then we simply need to do what? To reference where that value was saved via a variable. That's basically the purpose of variable in programming, or should I say that's the concept of variables in programming. But then for Python, how is this variable actually being declared? So for Python, we I think it also works differently depending on the programming languages. But for Python, we simply give the variable name, or should I say the container name, but the container name or the variable name, however you want to call it, the variable name, followed by assignments and this sign here, and then the value. So the value that we intend to save or to hold somewhere, right? We simply do what? We give it to a variable name. And I'll tell you what these variable names are, right? So now these variable names are basically like a label of that container, right? So let's say I have a variable like this. Let's say I have a variable like say a variable name like this called first name, right? First name, right? And then first name, I could give a value, a value of savior, right? Now remember, this value must follow what the appropriate data types, right? So since savior is not an integer, it cannot go without quotes, and it cannot come with decimal point, but then it belongs to what? To a text form, that is the string part. So as such, that value has to be what? Has to be in quotes. So please note that variable names, right, and the value are two different things. So you cannot quote this, please. You cannot come and do this and quote this. The moment you quote this, right, is now considered as what? As a value and not a variable name. So this is not your value. This is what your variable name, and your variable name is to exist without what? Quotes. Though I will also let us know what the available rules for naming of this variable. So this is what a typical example of how a variable is being declared in Python programming. So it means that anywhere within my code, I can do what? I can reference this value by simply doing what? Calling by what? The container name, right? So if I should call on first name, I will have what? I will have savior, right? So let me comment on this, and let me go ahead and let's simply just print out this now. So if I should print first name now, right? If I should print first name, of course, what I should expect to see as output is what? Is savior. So I can use this over and over and over again within my source code without the need of repeating savior everywhere. So you can say that we have savior right there as the value of that particular variable. I think someone's hand was up previously. I think it's here. Okay. You have question?
Sorry, it was my hand that was up. I was trying to ask the savior without in the bracket whether it will work, but you have answered my question when you printed it already. Just want to put it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't really hear you, Mr. Sachon. I didn't really hear you.
Yeah, I said I was trying to ask why the savior was not inside brackets.
Okay,
But
okay.
you answered my question already when you printed it. When it came out when you printed it.
Oh, okay. But all right. So if I should understand your question, okay. So the question was why is serial not inside bracket like this, right?
Yes, that was my question.
All right. So okay. So the reason is that it is that savior is just a value and it doesn't really need to be in brackets. Now, why the other ones are in brackets is because the print that's how that print function comes. The print function comes like this. This function is being built in, right? And then this function takes in any value within this category, right? So far we had values from string category. That's why we simply just come within that bracket and put those values there, like what we have here, like this hello world. This is a value, but then that stays within what this print function. So since at this point we were not actually printing anything, we are simply saying that let this value be given to this variable or this container so that we can do what we can reference it all over our code. So I can reference this man as many times as I want, right? Without the need of being what of repeating savior all over. And this actually looks irrelevant, all right? But then see it in a kind of situation where you had a very long value, right? A very or very lengthy value, and then you have to be writing that lengthy value all over your code. It makes your code messy. So what you could do is you could just assign that value one time to a container and then use and then reference that container as many times as you want. You understand?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. So I think someone's hand was up again. Someone's hand was up somewhere.
Yes, sir. It was me. Good morning.
Oh, all right. So do you have question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do. I mistakenly closed my VS Code and I reopened it back and I put the print function for hello world and it showed.
Okay.
Then I tried to put another print
Okay.
function, but it's displaying running and done, but it's only showing the hello world.
All right. So basically, you have two instructions, right? Two instructions that the interpreter should display messages twice, right? But then
Yes,
only one is
yes,
actually being executed.
yes, sir.
So is the other print function in a have you commented on it, or is there a value within that print function? Because if there
No,
is no value,
it's just print,
it's
bracket
just
open, print, then bracket open, then the quote, code space camp, quote again, then bracket close. But when I run it, it's showing only the hello world.
all right. So if possible, you could just leave us a screenshot if you can. But try running the code again. I believe it should execute both. Try running the
Okay.
code again. It should execute both. Probably what I see is execution of your previous code, right? So run
Yes,
the code
let
again.
me show you.
So run the
Let
code
me
again
see if I can show
let,
you.
let's know. So any question pertaining to the concept of variable. So variable is basically used to do what to save information or save value or save data. So for the purpose of reusing it within our code, right? Within our code. So if I have save a basi here, so I don't need to be repeating save your basi everywhere. I simply need to do what to reference name. So name is for me is shorter, right? Than save a basi. So I could just use name and use it multiple times and it will work. All right, so let's see. All right, yeah, that's True, that's true. That is true. Okay, so someone else have just please confirm that your code is safe. Please confirm that your code is safe. Okay, so that's one thing again. If your code is not safe, you may have problem of having of having your previous code executing, and then your new code, the new instruction that you just added won't get executed. So to save yourself from that stress of always saving, of always saving for each time you edit your source code, what you do is if you're using VS Code, if you click on file, you see what we call autosave. They just mark on autosave. So autosave will be saving your code for each time you change something within your source code. So it saves it from the stress of doing Control S over and over and over and over again, please. So that's why I have not been doing Control S. So when you type my code, I know it's saved. So please confirm that yours has been saved, please. So it could be that probably your source code will not save. All right, so okay, let's see. Give me a few minutes. Let's see what is happening with Mr. Christian. So it's taking time to come up. All right, let's see. It's taking time. All right, let's see. It's taking a lot of time. Okay, let's see. I don't know. Your image is taking time to come up. Okay, so I think we are up now. All right, so it says, let's see. All right, so your code is not safe, right? So it's very obvious. So if you see where my hand is now, let me see if I can. You see that white dot on top of your source code? It means that file is not safe. Please save the file and execute the code, and it will run both instructions. So please, that's the issue. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
All right. That's the problem. Okay. So save yourself the stress, all right, and simply turn on autosave, right? Turn this on so that you don't have to always remember doing Control S, right? Save yourself that stress and turn it on. All right. So that is basically variables. But then just because we can give this container any name, it doesn't mean that we can give it that there are no rules governing this naming convention, right? Mr. Joshua, your hand is up. Mr. Joshua, your hand is up.
Actually, I want to. There was a way
Mr. Joshua, I'm finding it hard to hear you properly. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you, sir.
Is there any way that can hear Mr. Joshua properly? Because I can't hear him from my end.
Can you hear me, sir?
All right, so I think it's better now.
Okay. So there was a way you like print that you showed that print was
All right, so you're filling in and filling out, filling in and filling out, filling in and filling out. I can't hear you clearly. I can't get the full statement. Yeah. If possible, can you comment it for us so we don't have to take too much time, please? All right. So your comment the question, and I read it from there. Right. I'll read it from there. All right. Okay. So like I was saying, just because we can call this container any name doesn't mean that there are no rules governing these names, right? We can't just randomly give this guy any kind of name and then store in any variable there, right? Store in any value there. There are rules governing the variable naming in Python. So I'll list out this rule. Rule one is that of course your variables can contain alphabet, can contain numbers, and underscore. Please, I did not say special character. I said an underscore. So this is the only special character that can live in your variables. So outside underscore, you cannot have any other character, right? So it can only contain what alphabet, numbers, and underscore. So like what we did previously, we had first name, right? Normally, if my variable actually contains more than one word, right? I usually separate those words by with underscore, rather, right? With underscore, like first name, or you could say first child, first underscore child, right? But then I cannot have first dash name. This is an error, right? So you could see it's already showing a warning sign there. So you can't have that. Please, only underscore. And then your variable name cannot start with number. So your variable name cannot start with number, right? Your variable name cannot start with number. Okay, let me see. You said you can set to save. So I'm looking for the question. There's a way you added print multiple times. Okay. All right, so to do print multiple times, okay, so VS Code have what we call copy and paste. So just put your cursor, they do Control C, Control V, and to just copy and to copy that entire line and paste it below. So you can do Control V, and keep pasting, right? So it copies the entire line and paste. So those are some tricks that works with VS Code. I'm not sure of Sublime Text though, but VS Code is very, very wonderful. It has some certain things that can make you code faster. All right. So another thing is that your variable, variable names are case sensitive. Right. So variable names are case sensitive. So if I have name here, right? If I have assuming I have that variable called name, right? And then I try to print the value that is stored within that container, and then I do something like this. You see, there's an error saying that name is not defined because this name that I'm trying to show is different from the other name. So variables are case sensitive, right? Variable names, please forgive every typo error, right? Please, variable names are case sensitive, right? Okay, so one more thing is that you cannot use reserve word. You cannot use reserve word. Reserve words. Words for variable names. So as we move forward, you will see words that are reserved in Python, right? So we cannot use those words for naming of variables, right? For naming of variables, right? So those are those are the basic or the major rules in variable naming. So you could have several names, okay, however you intend to call your variable, but then those variables need to follow these rules, right? Those variables need to follow that rules. Right, so all right, Mr. Trump, your hand is up again.
Yes, you said you cannot use reserved words. What are the reserved words?
All right, so there are some reserved words in Python. When we move forward, you see them. Example of them is that we have example of reserved words. We have words like for. For is reserved in Python. We have if. We have break. We have continue. You can't even use function name like print. Please don't do it. So, all right. So those are example of built-in or reserved words okay. These are basically words that mean something to Python interpreter. So if you see them or if you use them as your variable names, the interpreter might interpret them differently, right? The interpreter might interpret them differently. But then if there is need for you to use this reserved word, then you can change the casing since pattern is case sensitive, because all reserved words are lower cases. So probably if you still want to use this reserved word, then you can use 4. All right, as caps, but you can use 4 equals to 10, right? And 4 here can serve as your variable. But then I would say please run away from every reserved word so it doesn't complicate things for you, right?
Yes,
All right,
sir.
any other question? Sorry?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Using that as all caps, won't it read it as a constant? No.
No. Right. So that's one thing about Python. Python variables are not constant. So that is that's where dynamic comes in, which is what we're about to talk about. In variables, we don't have in Python variables, we don't have constant, unlike other programming. So it means that the values of each variable can change. They are dynamic, right? And they can change both the value and the type. So it means that if I have name as savior here is a text, right? That belongs to string, right? I can still use name and change it to what? To 100. And at that point, name is 100. So it is dynamic in nature. The values here can change from one type to another type. So that is where being dynamic comes in. Okay, that's where being dynamic comes in. So in Python, we don't have constant, but then there is a general law within the Python world that if you see a variable in uppercase, that we should treat it as constant. So, but it doesn't mean that the value cannot change, or that you cannot change that value. So if I have something like, let's say like age, so assuming age is supposed to be constant, then I can just say 100. So it means that if I should give this script to another Python developer, I'm basically telling that Python developer to please treat this variable as constant. But it doesn't mean that if I should come down here and say let age be equals to hello, that age will not change. Age will change. Do we understand? Do we understand?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. So that is the whole concept of programming. Right. So one more thing that we have to put in mind again is the concept of typecasting. Right. So please, this concept can be used anywhere within our source code. Right. So the main point is to understand how this concept works, and then we can use it anywhere. Right. There is no rule that says you must only use this concept here. Right. Simply know how this concept works, and then use every other concept anyway, and that's how or that's what programming is all about, right? That's what programming is all about. So know the concept and use it however you intend to use it, right? Okay, so one more thing, the concept of typecasting. So if typecasting is also a concept that works across multiple programming languages, right? And typecasting is basically changing value. Please forgive all type of error. Changing value in Python from one data type to another data type. All right. So that's basically what typecasting is. The ability to do what? To convert a particular type from one data type, a particular value from one data type to another data type. So if you have a value in Python, right, and you don't know and you're not sure of what data type that value belongs to, Python has another built-in function, right, called the type. So so this is the second built-in function that we're talking about now, right? The type function, this function here is built into Python, right? And this function here takes in value and then tells you what type or what data type that value belongs to, right? So let's say I have a variable called number, right? Called num, and num, I'll give it a value of 10.0, right? And I'm not sure of what type num belongs to. I could just simply say print, right? So remember, print does what? It displays to screen. So basically, I want to print the type of num. So I should now see which data type num belongs to, right? So if I should execute this now, I should have that what that num belongs to a class of what of float. So you can have, so you see class, and then you see what you see float. What we are seeing here is our previous print statement that we have up there. So if I scroll up our previous print statement that we have there, so they are still part of our source code. So as such, it will execute because that's how Python behaves. It executes from your very first instruction to the last instruction. So if I change num to, let's say, to hello, of course, this should belong to what, to string. So if I should do this now, we have string, exactly. And if I should also change this to, let's say, if I should change this to a value of true, of course, true here belongs to Boolean, right? We should have bool. So of course belongs to the class of Boolean. So that's basically what that type is used for. So if you're not sure of a type, then you can do what, you can confirm it using what that built-in type. All right. So, but then how does typecasting actually works? Now, typecasting works like this: in that for each data type, we have the built-in function for that type. What do I mean? For the class of string, we have a built-in function called string. It's a function, so it takes that man, right? For the class of int, we have a built-in function called what? Or int, right? And then for the class of float, we have a built-in function called float. And then for the class of Boolean, we have a built-in function called bool. All right. So each of these are what are built-in function for each of their built-in type, and then they exist what for every other type that we've not talked about yet. So we have, I thought that we have about 14 data types in Python. So each of those types has their own built-in function. So once we get to those types, we'll talk about it as well. So for these basics, right? For these few ones, these are their built-in types, right? They are built-in type. So typecasting exists in two forms. We have the implicit conversion, we have the implicit typecasting, and then we have the explicit typecasting. So I'll turn it to explicit. So implicit is basically a typecasting that happens, that Python does on its own, right? So it's implicit. So it happens automatically by default. So let's assume, okay, let's look at something. Let's take a very simple situation, right? Let's take a very simple explanation or scenario. So I'll comment all these things out for now. Let's assume that we have a variable, right? Let's assume that we have a variable called x, right? X equals to 10. And then we have another variable called y equals to 15.5, right? And then I want to say that z should be equals to x plus y. Very simple instruction, right? X plus y. Now, if I should check the type of x, which data type does it belong to? Which data type does x belong to?
X, integer.
Integer. What of y?
Float.
So now if I should do the addition of x and y, which data type will z belong to? Float. Exactly. So z will belong to what? To float. So now you could say that what that z is implicit by default. So Python automatically convey that type to float based on the value that x possess. But then explicit, on the other hand, is us as developers now saying that this variable you must be of this class. So we explicitly say that this man must be of this class. So for us to do that, then we can do what? Then we can use any of the built-in class and do what? And convert explicitly. So now if you should run this now, so if I should run, let's say if I should print out the value, let's see the result of z, right? The result of z, right? And then also see the type of z for confirmation sake. So I should type of z. Of course, z should be 25. Z should be 25.5, and z should be of the type float. So let's see that. Okay, so 25.5 and of course belong to float, right? Now let's assume that we are developers, we don't want Z to be float, we want Z to be integer. So we want to explicitly say that let Z be integer. So what we could do is what I can do is that I could now say, okay, fine, I could assign a new type. So I'll call a variable called new type, and then I will assign a new type to Z. I'll assign a new type to Z. So by explicitly saying that let's int take Z. I'll simply select int take Z. So it means that I will pass this Z to the built-in integer type. And what happens is that integer, that conversion, this type will convert type of Z to integer, such that if you now check the new type, of course, it will give us integer, and Z having an integer value as well. And Z having an integer value as well. All right, so if we should now run this now, so I'll put some empty prints here, and a couple of empty prints. So it space out the previous code from this new one. All right, so if I should now go ahead and say, let us see the type of Z now. Okay, so if I should print the value of Z again, then at this point, I'm expecting that Z should no longer carry a value of integer, of float, because at this point we've done we forcefully say that Z should belong to a class of integer, and for Z to belong to that class, the value must be of integer value. So if we should execute this now, if we should execute this, okay, so we should check the new type rather. So let's take the new type now of this man. Let's take the new type of this man. So if we print new type, rather, so if we check new type, because this is where the conversion happened, and this conversion is saved to this variable called new type. So if I should run this now, we have that that Z is now 25, and if I should check the conversion on the type of this man, so type the type, and then I should now have int. So running that, we have that here is 25 and here is integer. Do you understand? Question? Do you have question? Question. Do you understand?
Yes.
We understand. All right. So it's telling me that we understand. Okay. So that is perfect. So that is how we can do what. That is how we can typecast. So that's how we can convert. So basically what we converted here, and then we assign that new conversion, right, to this variable called new type, or say new type of X, new type of Z, right? So this is where the conversion happened, and this is where it's being saved, right? And then we could do what we could simply just print the new value of this conversion, because and then also print the new type of that conversion. So before now we had 25.5, but now we have 25. Now because we converted, and for this man to belong to the class of integer, it means that the decimal part must be cut off. So you could see that at this point that 0.5 has been removed, has been truncated, and then the class, and then the type has been changed from float to integer, and we can do that for every other kind of conversion. But then it doesn't mean that just because we can convert from one type to another type doesn't really mean that we can convert everything, right, from one type to another type, right? Okay, so let's assume that that my x here, I want my x, right, to be I want my z to be what, a string of 100. Now, if I should execute this code, I should say that that z should be a string at first, right? This is the value of z being what, 100, and this is the type being what, being string. Remember, anything in quotes is what is of a class of string, right? So then, but then after we converted that, we have that is now what, an integer. But then it doesn't still mean that we can convert everything. So we cannot convert something like, let's say we have a string of savior, right? A string of savior. So we cannot convert savior, right, to an integer, because what, savior does not have an equivalent integer form, right? So when converting, please know that it should be something compatible, something that has an equivalent of the other type, right? So please, let's note that we cannot convert everything to another class, right? But then we can convert what have an equivalent representation of the other class. All right. So that is typecasting, or the concept of typecasting. And we've talked about a lot of things in today's class. So we've looked at the print function, we've looked at data type, we've looked at variables, we've looked at typecasting. So to round up for this class, we look at one more concept, right? Because in programming, we mostly deal with with input and output. And so far we've looked at the output, but then we've not actually looked at input. So for this, we're gonna take a good look at how we can collect information, collecting information from users, right? Collecting information from users. So far we've only been displaying, right? So far we've only been sending to screen, but we've never really actually collected from user. So how do we collect information from user, or how do we collect text information, whatever at all, from user? Well, we have a built-in function for that as well. And it's called input. So the thing is that the good thing about Python is that most of its built-in function, from the name, you already know what it does. So just like print shows input does what? Collect, right? So we have inputs there, and basically, let me comment out every other code that we've been doing so far. All right, so I only want this to be the only instruction to be executed. So if I should run this now, you will see that in our prompt, it's as if nothing happened, but something has happened, right? Something has happened. Now, if you click on your prompt, you have what? You have something like a cursor here, right? That is blinking, right? It's just there. So it basically means that there is an invisible space there that means that we can type, right? So we can say that if I can actually type there anything at all, and I can do what clean as well, and I can keep typing clean, and I can type anything at all, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it keeps staying there, because now what is happening is that we have just one instruction being this input. So when Python comes across this input function, what happens is that it provides you with a space that you can type, right? At this point, we can type anything. At this point, you can type anything, basically any value. So probably I can type in my name here, right? Like Savior. I can simply type in a valid number like 100 or 1000. I can type in 10.6. I can still type in a text, so like Savior, right? And it works just fine. But then it keeps staying there. Nothing really happened. It keeps staying there. Now the thing is that the way input function works is that it will stay there till whenever you click on enter. So when you click on enter, it assumes that you finish typing, and then it moves to the next instruction if there were any other instructions left in the source code, right? So until I click on enter, it will keep staying there because it thinks or it believes that you are still typing. So when I click on enter, and then that ends our code. That's basically the end of our code, because that was the only instruction that we have on our source code. But then But then it's weird. It's weird. It's weird that if we execute this code, nothing shows on the terminal, right? So imagine going to an ATM and then it's just blank and you don't know what to do. Okay, assuming that there was no instruction like, okay, like type in your pin or do this or do that, it's just an empty screen staring at you. You'll be confused, right? You'll be confused. And then you'll be wondering, what do I do? Do I type? Do I not type? Do I need to do this or do I need to do that? So that's basically what we are having here. Nothing is, no message, nothing is showing. It's just an empty space for us to do what to type. And we don't even know what to type. If you type your name or your email or your age or whatever, we don't even know. You just type, right? You just type any random thing, and it's not even proper, right? It's not proper to do that, right? In actual software, it's not actually proper. So what we could do is above here we could probably have our print statement above there. That's one thing that we can do. So assuming that we intend to collect the user's first name, I could simply just say type your first name below, right? I'm putting below because, of course, remember this print statement takes the whole line, so it means that this input here is coming below. So if I should execute this now, I should have type your first name below, so you see that that cursor stays below. So here is more reasonable, right? It's more informative. So now I know that I'm going to type what my first name. So I can simply come here and type Savior, right? And that worked just fine. But there is still a problem, right? There is still a problem, right? And the problem is that whatever the user type, we cannot access it from our source code. Assuming I was supposed to get your first name, right? And then greet you good morning, depending if we are in the morning time, or greet you good afternoon, depending if you're in the afternoon time, or good evening, depending if you are in the evening time. But at that point, I can't even collect what you've typed, right? What you've typed was, you click on enter, it's gone, it's lost in space. We can't see it, we can't get hold of it, right? So one thing that we can do is we can assign this input to a variable, right? So if I should assign this input to probably a variable called first name, so I'll call this first name, first underscore name, and then by default, what happens is that once the user click on enter, the value that has been typed will be saved to this variable. So it means that within my source code, I can know what I can access that variable, right? I can access that variable. So probably if I wanted to print out, probably this is morning time, I could simply just come here and say print. Within my print, I will simply say good morning, and then I will put your name there, right? So if my name was Samuel, I will simply say good morning, Mr. Samuel, right? Or Mrs. Joyce or whatever. So I will simply just say good morning, Samuel, right? I will leave the title. Okay, I'll leave a title. So I will say good morning, and then I'll put in Samuel. So one thing about print is that you can print multiple things using one print statement. So probably I forgot to talk about that in our print session. So you can print multiple things using one print statement. You only need to separate them with comma. So if I had like 3 things to print, I'll just separate each of those 3 things with comma and use one print statement, and all of them will show on one line. So basically, that's what I will do here. I will simply put my text there saying good morning, followed by what? A variable called first name. So whatever you type in there, I will just simply say good morning and then that thing, right? So if I should execute it now, I should now say where it says type in your name below. So if I should type in Savior, I should now have good morning, Savior. Are we making sense? Are we making sense? Do you have question? Question.
Are we going to call that line 87 a variable?
Sorry?
Are we going to call line 87 a variable, since we're able to call? Do you understand?
No. I didn't really get your question. Are we going to call?
Are we going to call line 87 a variable?
Yes, this is a variable. Yeah, this is a variable name, and this is the value. So the value here is that whatever value is being typed within this input function, right? So this is your variable name. So that's why it's not in quotes. If I should put this in quotes, then this becomes a string. So what I will have is good morning first name. That's what we show. So if I should execute this now, so that it will show good morning good morning first name. So even if I type in Savior here, it shows good morning first name. Now the reason is that this is what is in quote. So you don't put variables in quote, please. So to get the actual value of that variable, then you just put the variable name as it is, and the actual value would be derived. All right. So, but then there is still a problem with this our input, right? There's still a problem with our input here. The problem here is that every value that we type into this input function is considered as a string, and that is the problem that we are having. So if I should let's go ahead, let's print the type, right? Let's print type of first name. So let's see which category of data type it belongs to. So before even printing this one here, I'll put a empty print there. Right. So if I should execute this now, and let's say I type in Savior, okay? Of course, it should belong to what? To string, right? It belongs to what? It belongs to string. That is fine. But then, assuming we are dealing with numerical values, something like this. If I should come here again, if I should run my code again, and then I type in, let's say something like 100. You see, 100 still belongs to a string because that is what happens by default. So by default, everything that comes through your input function is seen as a string. Everything that comes through your input function is seen as a string. So everything that comes in through your input function is seen as a string. So basically, what we want to do is this. What we want to do is we can apply the concept of typecasting, right? That if you are dealing with values, with numerical values. So let's assume that we are to write a program. So sorry, I'll comment this out. And assuming that we were to write a program, right? A program, let's say a Python script, rather. A Python script that calculates, right? That calculates the area of a triangle, assuming, right? This would be a very simple script that does that, right? So, and of course, we know that to calculate area of a triangle, it's half, I think, yes, half breadth. So half times breadth times height, right? Where breadth and height are numerical values. But then, so it means that assuming that also that breadth and height is supposed to come from our end users, right? So I could say I could bring in input, right? And okay, so one more thing again about this input function is that this input function can behave as print as well. So within your input function, if you should pass a string of message, then it will just show and then still collect. So it can act as both input and print. So if I should have something like this, enter your value for height, right? And then of course I'll assign this to a variable called h so that we can know what we can fetch that value. If I should run this now, then this will show as both print and input. So if I should run this, it shows enter. So it shows enter the value of h, right? But then it still gives us room to do what to type. So you can either do this method, right? Or you can do what we did previously, where you have your input down here and then you have your print up there. Or you can simply do what you can simply just put your message there in the input itself, and then it will look like this. So it will show the message and still do what, give you room to do what to type. So if I should now type in something like 20 or like 10 as my height, the point is that the height will now be in string, and we won't be able to do what numerical evaluations, right, or calculations. So I will do the same thing for my breadth. Okay, my breadth. This will be my h. Sorry, my b, rather. And then the calculation here is a half breadth don't worry, we'll talk about operator soon. So half breadth times height times breadth. And then I'll assign this to a variable called the area. And then I would simply just print the area, and I would say the result of your calculation is, and then I'll put in my area there. All right. So if you execute this now, and then we put in some basic values, I'll put in 10 here, I'll put in 20 there. Well, I have an error, right? Saying that we cannot multiply sequence of non-integer type. So the point is that this man here is we are trying to multiply, because this will evaluate to a float. So you are trying to multiply a float with strings, and which cannot happen. Well, which cannot happen. So that's the problem with input functions. So everything that comes through input function comes in as a string. They comes as code. So what we can do now is that we can apply the concept of type casting, right? The concept of type casting, we can apply it here. So what we can do now is that we come here and we can say that we want to convert this to probably to float. So let's see. So we want to convert this to float. So it means that once you've typed and then we do what we simply convert at once. Or you can do this separately. If this method is confusing you, right? We can do this separately. So basically what I mean is that we can come here and then we can say converted h should be equals to float, right? Of h. And then we can work with what? We can work with the converted h, right? And we can work with converted h instead of. So it means we collect this value and then we convert it here and then we use the converted h instead of the other way around, right? For this one, so this will be my converted b, and from this I'll put this as b. And if I should now run this again, and then if I type my 10 and type my 20, so it says okay. So the problem is that we can also convert string to float. So what we can do int. We can also do int. All right, and then we execute this now. And then we have our 10, we have our 10, our 20. Say that what is happening? Let's see. Okay, sorry. So we have to also change our b to converted b rather. So that is the error. So during the process of programming, we also learn to debug, right? To read errors. Exactly right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. I was saying that you are Mr. Imo Akan. Thank you. Yes. So during the process of writing code, you are bound to see errors. So it's your job to do what to read that error and debug it, right? We also learn the act of debugging as we move forward. So I should now run this now. So we have our 10, our 20, and of course the result of what is 20 points. So if you do that math, then that should be correct. So that is the problem with dealing with numerical values. So please, when dealing with numerical values, always remember to do what to typecast, convert it, right? Because by default it comes in as a string. So convert it to what to actual int or actual float. Do you understand? Question? So we can wrap it up. Question. All right, so Mr. Gabriel, your hand is up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Mr. Gabriel.
I want to ask
okay.
What if we leave this converted h and write int h hyphen input, like we remove that converted h down, then that h at the top we put int, that's we show int at the top instead of writing converted down. Will it work?
Okay, so okay, let me phrase the question correctly. So if I should leave this converted h, right?
Yes.
And
like
then,
clean everything here. Now that place that you wrote h at the top, that's h hyphen input. Enter
okay,
this. That we put, yes, you put int before the h. Won't it work? Like to show that it is integer.
Okay, like I should put the int here, right?
Yeah, something like that, showing that it's integer.
All right, so okay, so it's work, but then you are doing it. You're doing it the other way around. So instead, it should be on the input, not the variable itself, right? So this is where the value is coming in from, right? So you want to combine that value, right? So the value has not yet landed in the variable itself. So it's still building here. So what you do, you can do it here, and it will work here, and then use the H here directly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that can work there. So you can do
That one is simpler.
Sorry?
I think it's simpler as is this than applying this converter.
Yeah, for me, I prefer this way around. Okay, so I was actually doing this so that we get to see what is happening here, right? So that this doesn't actually complicate things for us. So I have to bring it down here and do it separately. But for me, I'll simply just convert it here directly and put it and save it to H. Right. Any other question? So it says, we can do yes. Yes, exactly. So yes, so American has also left another suggestion for us. So we can do this as well. So we can simply, instead of converting it here, we can just simply come here directly and just use floats here and do that. And of course that works perfectly. That works perfectly. So that's basically the whole the whole idea about programming. So you learn this concept, right, and then you use it anywhere or anyhow you see fit. There is no direct path to solving problems. Everybody has their means. So like I said, and someone else might choose to go for this route, right? Someone else might choose to go for this route, right? Mr. Imo might choose to go for this other route. They all work. They all do the concept of. They all carry out the same concept of typecasting. That is wonderful. That is perfect. Very, very fantastic. Very fantastic. Very fantastic. That is exactly the beauty of programming. Perfect. So question. Right. So let's touch down basic operators in Python, and then we wrap it up there, right? So since we've used some operators, so let me just simply list out some other basic operators, just in case we intend to go and do some practice at home, so that once we come across certain operators that looks great, so that we know that we've covered them and it shouldn't be weird again. So basic operators in Python. Basic operators in Python. Okay, so basic operators in Python. So we have, of course, we have the ones that we've just used. This is multiplication. This man here, asterisk, is multiplication in Python. Okay, we have, this is division in Python, right? And we have something like this again, double slash. This is integer division, and I'll tell us how it works. So integer division is, it basically, it returns whole number and throw away the fraction. So let me show that difference. Okay, so let me explain that first. So if I should comment on this, because this will not execute, and I'll comment on this as well. So if I have a value, let's say I have a variable called a equals to okay, Mr. Chum, your hand is up. Triumph.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you short. I wanted you to finish. No, sorry. Is this hashtag that you're putting? I tried to do it the way you said it. I'm not able to. I don't know if you can repeat. Maybe I'm getting this wrong. Then you just
Wait, sorry, I didn't hear you properly. You said that the asterisk did what?
the hashtag or asterisk, whatever what they call it, the hashtag that you put, how you usually put it. I'm still not able to get it.
Okay, like how I commented on all these things.
Yes, sir.
All right, so the command is that you highlight them and then you do control plus /. I think I left that command somewhere up there. Yeah, there it is. Control plus /. So if you highlight, you do control and then /, it will comment. Same thing to also uncomment. So if I should do this now, this should also uncomment these things and then comment it back again. All right, so that's the command. All right, so if I have a variable, say 10 equals this, and then I have another variable, say b equals 3. If I should do c equals to a divided by b, of course, this will give us what? This will give us about 3 point something, right? And then I can print my c. If I should print my c, if I should print my c, I should have 3 point something. You have 3.333335. So that is how division works. But then if I have double slash is what is integer division. So it means that if we are only interested in what we are only interested in what in the integer part, that is the whole number part, and then we don't really want the fraction part. So this should now give us only 3 and leave the rest. So you have 3. So you have 3 there. So that's basically how integer division works. So that is the difference between this operator and that operator. That is the difference between them, right? That's how integer division works. Right? That's basically how integer division works. Right? So don't worry. This call is being recorded. All right, it's being recorded and it will be uploaded soon. So you don't have to worry much. Right? You don't have to worry much. All right, so we have another operator, the one that's very familiar. It's on here, subtraction. So that dash is subtraction in Python. We have plus is addition, of course. Addition. And we have another weird one that looks like this. That looks like what we think it is, but it's not. This man. So this man here is called remainder or modulo, also known as remainder. So the way this particular operator works is that this operator doesn't calculate the percentage. Instead, it returns the remainder of a division. So it carries out a division and then returns what remains after that division has been completed successfully, right? So basically, if I should do A mod B, this should return 1 because 3 can go into 10 times, 3 times, remaining 1, right? So it means that 10 can be shared into 3 places and 1 will still remain. So that's basically how that operator works. It returns the remainder after division, right? So this should now give us 1 if I should run this. So this gives me 1, right? As expected, of course. 1 remains, right? 1 actually remains after this division. So those are the basic operators in Python. There are other operators which we'll also explore. We have, so these ones are basic arithmetic operators, right? Arithmetic operator. We have logical operators, we have conditional operator, but this is basically for basic arithmetic, right? Arithmetic operation, right? So you have the multiplication, division, integer division, subtraction, addition, and modulo. Question. All right, so in the absence of question, so we will leave it there. So we'll end there for today's class, and we've basically done pretty much so many things, a lot. So in today's class, we've a quick recap. So we've talked about the print function. All right, so today's class we talked about print function. We've talked about variables. We talked about variables. We've talked about data types. We've talked about data typecasting, rather. Casting. We've talked about what again? We've talked about input function. We've also talked about some basic operators. Okay. All right. So that's now when we come next week, when we come, there's definitely tax will come by default. That's how KodeCamp works. Every week comes with tax. So tax will definitely come and we'll play around with this thing that we've learned so far. It looks basic, but trust me, I'll give you thanks that this basic will no longer be basic. Okay, but it looks basic. Okay, so it's actually basic, and I'm sure that of course you guys are capable of playing around with this information that we've learned so far. All right, so yeah, that's basically that for today's class, and we'll end it for today's class. But real quickly, before we jump off of the call, let me just end this recording. Let's talk about LMS. So end this recording.